Do you remember the internet from the 90s? Just think about it for a second. That visual chaos of a web page just exploding with blinking text and clashing colors and animated GIFs crammed into every single pixel. Now compare that to the calm, clean interface of your favorite app today. That feeling, that sense of relief, like you can finally breathe? Well, that is the modern front in a war that has been going on for centuries, the battle for the blank space.
Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to trace this whole story from ancient philosophy all the way to the phone that's probably in your hand right now. We'll explore our fear of emptiness, that compulsive urge we have to fill it, the rebellion that actually embraced the void, and what it all means for us today.
So, you know that feeling, that need to fill every empty corner you see, whether it's on a website or even in your own living room? Well, it turns out that's not new. Not at all. It's a really deep-seated human impulse with a long and, frankly, absolutely fascinating history.
Okay, first things first, let's get our key term down. It's called horror vacui. It's Latin, and it literally translates to fear of emptiness. And it's just the perfect name for this tendency we have to cover every single surface with detail, leaving no space left behind.
What's so cool about this idea is how it's traveled through time. I mean, it kicked off as a serious debate among Greek philosophers like Aristotle, who basically argued that a true vacuum couldn't exist in nature. Then, centuries later, an art critic named Mario Praz dusted off the term to talk about the jam-packed, cluttered style of the Victorians. And now, fast forward to today, and we use it to talk about why a confusing, overloaded website gives us a headache.
All right, let's dig in and see how this fear of the void has actually shown up in art and culture over the centuries, sometimes as an act of devotion, and other times, well, more like an obsession.
And believe me, this impulse is everywhere. It's not a one-off thing. We see it in the incredibly dense pages of medieval Bibles, in those over-the-top Victorian living rooms that basically screamed, "I have money," in the amazing detail of Indian miniature paintings, and you can even see it in outsider art, where it can be like a window into an artist's inner world.
And this quote, it just perfectly captures the mindset behind those medieval manuscripts. For the monks who made them, filling every millimeter of that page wasn't just decoration, it was an act of faith. The filled space was complete, it was divine, and it left absolutely no room for distracting, worldly thoughts to creep in.
And you know, some artists took this idea and just ran with it. They became absolute masters of the style. I mean, think of Hieronymus Bosch's sprawling, chaotic scenes. His work is so dense with figures and action and detail that the very idea of a background pretty much disappears.
But this urge to fill isn't always about grand artistic statements. Sometimes it's way more personal, even compulsive. In what we often call outsider art, you see artists like Hiroyuki Doi, who creates these massive works made of nothing but tiny, hand-drawn circles, filling the paper in a way that feels both meditative and totally obsessive.
Okay, so you know how it goes. For every action, there's a reaction, right? It was only a matter of time before a powerful counter-movement popped up, one that didn't fear the void but actually embraced it.
And this new movement, it had a mantra, a really simple but totally revolutionary phrase from the architect Ludwig Mies van der Rohe: less is more. This was a complete and total rejection of all that Victorian clutter. The idea was that real beauty and function could be found in simplicity and restraint.
Now, this is where things get really interesting, because in the West, we tend to think of emptiness as a bad thing, right? A loss, a nothingness. But many Eastern philosophies see it completely differently. In Buddhism, for instance, the concept of shunyata, or emptiness, isn't a void at all. It's a positive state, a space of pure potential where everything is connected.
So what we've got here are two completely opposite ways of looking at the world. On one side, you've got horror vacui, which says more is more. It's all about complexity, abundance, filling space. And on the other side, you have minimalism, which champions less is more. It's about simplicity, function, and using space deliberately.
And this whole new way of thinking? Well, it basically gave artists a green light to explore emptiness in a totally new way. For painters like Kazimir Malevich with his famous black square, or Agnes Martin with her quiet, subtle grids, the empty space wasn't just the background anymore. It was the subject. It was a space for feeling.
Okay, so let's bring this whole ancient battle right into our world, to the modern battlefield, the screens we are glued to for hours every single day. This is where the war between clutter and clarity is being fought right now. So, in the design world today, the void has a new name. We call it white space, or negative space. And it is absolutely not something to be feared. In fact, it's one of the most powerful tools a designer has. It's the nothing that gives everything else meaning.
So what happens when a designer just ignores all this? When they fall back into that fear of emptiness trap? Well, they send you on a journey of pure frustration. First, you get hit with information overload. Everything is screaming for your attention at once. Then comes cognitive overload. Your brain literally gets tired and just starts to shut down. You get confused, you can't find the button you're looking for, and finally, you just give up and leave, and you're probably not coming back.
But hold on. This isn't just about making things look pretty and clean. What if the emptiness itself, the gaps between things, is where the real magic happens?
You know, the writer Susan Sontag absolutely nailed this idea. Silence only makes sense because you know what sound is. Emptiness and fullness, they define each other. It's the tension between them that really creates meaning. You can't have one without the other.
Just think about a piece of collage art. The meaning isn't just in the pictures that are pasted down, it's in the jarring, weird, empty gaps between them. Those silent spaces. They force your brain to do the work, to make new connections, and to find a story in all the pieces.
And hey, this isn't just about art. You can see the exact same thing out in the real world. That abandoned lot you walk by, you might think it's just an empty wasteland, but ecologists now know that these spaces are often islands of biodiversity. They're vital refuges for plants and animals. So what looks like a void is actually buzzing with hidden life.
So, all of this brings us right back to where we started, doesn't it? Back to this timeless tension between our deep-seated impulse to fill every corner and the quiet power we can find in just letting things be.
You know, this choice between more and less, between complexity and clarity, it shapes everything from the art we make to the websites we use to our own mental well-being. So the question I want to leave you with is this. In our incredibly noisy, information-packed world, is finding a bit of empty space a luxury we can no longer afford, or is it a necessity we can't afford to lose?